This week is the finale of the HPT Season 8 Championship Open. The HPT crowns a champion among champions from the beautiful Belterra Casino Resort in Florence, Indiana. Hundreds started on day one, and 6 sat down at our TV final table. Now only a few remain, and one man stands out among the rest. He is Greg Fossilman Raymer, and he's trying for his 4th HPT title in one season. He's already got the Season 8 Player of the Year locked up, but it's history that Greg wants. Only one other player has won 3, but no one has done it in one season, and no one has ever won 4. But Raymer's obstacles to history are not small. The other players left have the skill and the chips to stop Raymer's historical run. Will the Fossil Man make history? Or will one of these other talented players earn the bragging rights to say they stopped him? History, life-changing money, and immortality await tonight. This is the HPT.
They come from all walks of life, each with a story to tell. All they need is a chip and a chair. It's an open casting call for those who love the game. This ain't your weekend home game. This is the HPT.
Sit right down, put on your poker face. You with the big dogs now. Better bring your best game. Talk trash all you want. To me, it's all the same. You won't leave with much when you come in second place. And I'm the one with the stack showing 7 to the jack. Gonna cry to your mama, cause I'm sending you back. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. Last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand.
Hello and welcome to the finale of Season 8 on the HPT. This week we are in Florence, Indiana at Belterra Casino Resort for the HPT Season 8 Championship Open. I'm Chris Hansen, and to my left is a man who's always open for shots at the bar. He is Fred Bevel. Now, Fred, once again, we have a final table rich with drama, history, and storylines.
Indeed, and it's all wrapped up in a tidy little package called the Fossil Man. Greg Raymer started among almost 300 players that wanted to be the last man standing, and now he's only a few players away from winning his 4th title in 1 year. This is an amazing accomplishment that may never be matched.
Fred, the word impressive doesn't even come close to describing Greg's historical run this season, but it is not over. We've seen chip leaders go to the rail at this final table in just a couple of hands. We've seen short stacks double up and then go on to win at other final tables. The other players trying to make their own mark at this final table could care less about Greg Raymer and his aim at 4 championships in the HPT this year. They know they just want to stop him.
Well, that'll be like trying to stop a freight train. Greg is focused and he's playing his A game. He's well aware of what he's playing for tonight, and it's not just the $100,000 that goes with being the next champ.
All right, there is only one way to find out if this is all going to come true. Let's meet the players at the final table and then get right to the action.
I'm Jake Baisley. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, and I play poker for a living.
I'm Bruce Ostrander from Collierville, Tennessee, and I'm a business owner.
I'm Greg Fossilman Raymer from Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'm a professional poker player.
This week, it's been pretty smooth sailing. I've pretty much had the best of it and just held, which is actually very lucky and hard to do a lot, but it's been a lot of hands like that. I've luckily won 2 flips and lost 1 where I was ahead, but these all-in pots are just so important, and you really can't, figure out who's gonna win what. It's just completely lucky half the time, so you just got to play your game and hope you have enough chips behind so that you're not the one at risk every time you're going all in.
I love the structure of the HPT tournament where you have the qualifiers. You don't necessarily have to buy in for the full main event buy-in amount to get in the event. They have a good structure, and allowing 20% of the field to make it through the qualifiers is great. Yeah, I started day 2. I think it's the 3rd lowest stack with 24,900, and I feel good about the fact that I obviously went through an amazing run during day 2 to become the chip leader, but did it with, I think I was only behind in 1 hand when I was all in.
Well, number 4 would mean a lot. It's already very special to have won 3. And to make another final table is, you know, something I really wasn't thinking about. My wife had to make me pack this shirt just in case. And, you know, so it's like I've already got kind of the history books locked up. You know, 3 titles in 1 year, 3 titles in a career on the HPT is the record. So 4 would just put an even bigger exclamation point at the end of it. Right now, I'm your player of the year. I have the most cash won this year on the HPT. If I win today, then I become the career money leader on the HPT, all in 4 events.
Well, along with the HPT Championship Open also comes a very nice payday, Fred, $106,000 to our winner tonight.
The next person knocked off this final table still goes home with a little over 38 grand. A great payday for a $1,500 tournament. And here is the updated chip count, Chris. This is wide open for anyone to win.
Yeah, we are separated by less than 200,000 in chips from bottom to top. Jacob technically is our short stack, but as you can see, he's still got 45 big blinds, and Bruce and Greg have 47 big blinds, so a lot of play left tonight on the HPT. Action will start with Jacob Basile. He's from Cincinnati, Ohio, a 29-year-old poker pro.
Jake raises it up to 125,000 with 7-8 suited.
And action is now on Bruce Ostrander from Collierville, Tennessee. A 46-year-old business owner will make the call. And this man needs no introduction.
Who is he?
He's got 5'8". He is the World Series of Poker champion, Greg Raymer.
Never heard of him.
It's kind of like winning an Oscar. For the rest of your life, you're always, even if you're just nominated for an Oscar for the rest of your life, you get that title. And Greg Raymer, not only a World Series of Poker champ, but also going for his 4th win this season on the HPT. That might be some kind of record. The flop is ace-5 jack with 2 diamonds.
Well, Bruce hits the best of this by pairing the jack for second pair. Greg hits the 5 for bottom pair. Jake... Well, Jake's a good-looking young man.
He's got nothing, but that doesn't mean he is not going to bet at this pot. $185,000 is the bet. Action will now be on Bruce and his second pair with the jacks.
Over to Bruce now after the $185,000 chip bet.
Jake was the pre-flop raiser. He's continuation betting here. But that ace really does scare people.
Call has been made by the 4 seed.
And Bruce does make the call. And having a bet and a call in front of you when you're just looking at 8-5 offsuit, that's good enough to get it in the muck, and Greg agrees. He folds.
Bruce is playing in his 4th HPT event. This will be his first cash on the HPT. And for Jacob, this is his 3rd event and also his first cash on the HPT. Both of them, it's going to be a big one. The turn is a 7.
Well, Jake caught a piece of that turn. He's now got a pair of 7s.
Bruce checks. Action is now on the 29-year-old poker pro.
And he is firing his second bullet at this pot, and it's a big one. As the dealer's cutting out the chips, we see that it is $515,000. And that's going to make second pair think a lot about making this call.
Now, you don't want to make a bad decision here. 3-handed. Obviously, the big money is in the top 2. You want to hold on to the chips. No sense to give them away when you don't think you absolutely have it. And Jacob is going to take this pot down.
That is slower away. No, it's a hard thing.
As we move on, blind still at 30 and 60,000 with the 5K ante. And Bruce will be first to act.
He folds queen 7 on the button over to Greg Raymer. Oh, it's a good fold by Bruce. Greg wakes up with ace queen. And he's going to raise it up, makes it $130,000. And now over to Jake with the working man's hand, 9-5.
Whenever Greg gets involved in a pot, he always puts the Fossilman glasses on. And I asked him if those are the original Fossilman glasses from the World Series of Poker. He said they weren't. And I said, what happened to the original pair? And he said, my wife threw them in the garbage.
Women.
That story's not true. I just totally made it up.
Oh.
But it was convincing, wasn't it?
I stand by my comment.
Thank you very much. I am an Oscar nominee. The flop is 5, Jack 10, rainbow.
Well, Greg picks up a gut shot straight draw. Jake has outflopped him, though. He pairs his 5.
Action is on, Mr. Raymer. No, really what happened was he sold the glasses to a Chinese investor. Nope, that didn't happen.
Wow, I got to stop believing you. I actually believe that. Looks like Greg is stacking some chips, and he has made a bet. It's $160,000.
Actually, what happened to the glasses, they are on display right now at the Smithsonian. Now, that's not true either.
You're pretty good at lying.
He did inform me they are not the original Fossil Man glasses that he had at the table. He wouldn't tell me what happened to the originals, though.
I'm sure he owns several pairs.
And here comes the turn. It is an 8.
Well, look at this.
Jacob's got himself an up and down straight draw. Greg Raymer has a double belly buster. He would need a king or a 9 to make his straight. They both check. And here comes the river. Jacob made his straight. And Greg is going to check. And so it looks like Jacob's ready to make a bet here on the river.
Trying to get some value out of that straight. I don't see Greg paying him off here. Let's see what kind of bet he puts out.
Looks like $375,000 is the bet. Over to Greg.
Greg sitting on just ace high. Tosses out a chip, which designates a call, but then looks like he's trying to fold. But I'm sorry, Mr. Raymer, you've already thrown out the chip. That's an official call.
And one chip is all you need to make the call. And I don't know if Greg got the information he was looking for, but he saw that Jacob had the best hand. More poker when we come back. Welcome back to the HPT. Here is the updated chip count. Jacob, our new chip leader, now with just under 4 million chips.
Greg and Bruce not too far behind, but the real story here, everybody's still super deep, as even Bruce, our technical short stack, still has 37 big blinds left.
And for most of the non-tournament poker players that are out there, usually you don't have any alarms going off in your head until you get under 20. So as you can see, there's still plenty of room for play. Blinds are 30 and 60,000 with a 5K ante.
Greg Raymer folds. We're on to the small blind of Jake. And Jake is going to raise from the small blind with Jack 3. I like that raise. You're betting into a random hand.
Coming over to Bruce.
Bruce is going to oblige. He's going to make the call.
Bruce has got Jack 10. Bruce says he also plays a lot of golf. I'm surprised we haven't run into each other yet. Here we go. The flop is King Deuce Jack. Both the players hit their Jack.
Unfortunate for Jake. Bruce has him just crushed. And Jake, being the pre-flop raiser, is going to go ahead and continuation bet. Makes it $125,000. And now decision back to Bruce.
Bruce calls. So we will see the turn in this hand. It is an 8.
Well, Bruce still has the best of it with a 10 kicker.
And we saw with Jacob, he's going to check.
And both these players are going to slow down a little bit now.
King scaring both players, even though they do have a jack in their hand. And for Jake, he's also thinking, well, it's just Jack 3. It's nothing great. Here comes the 9 of hearts on the river. Bruce with the best hand, unless Jake can figure out a way to bet and get him off of it, but they're both going to check. And Fear is going to win this hand, and technically Bruce will as well, with the best hand.
Well, Bruce, like we mentioned, is technically the short stack. He's adding a little over $500,000 in chips to his stack now.
And we continue on with Greg Fossilman Raymer, trying to become the first ever 4-time champ on the HPT. Fred, winning 4 events in your career for most people would be a pretty big deal. For Greg Raymer, winning 4 in a year, that's an accomplishment that's going to be tough to best.
And the entire poker world is on bated breath to see if Greg can take down this 4th championship. All the media outlets, all of his pro friends. His Twitter is just blown up.
And somewhere in the land of 10,000 lakes of Minnesota, Jeremy Dresch is maybe the only person in the world who's hoping that Greg Raymer doesn't win here tonight, because he would like to keep that record with the Fossil Man.
Well, just to recap here, Greg wakes up with my favorite hand, King Queen, makes it $165,000 to go. And look at this, Jacob re-raises, makes it $290 to go. And that makes Bruce fold very quickly. And now action back on Greg. And Greg makes the call.
2 players, Jacob and Greg, sees 3. see the flop, please.
And here comes the flop. It is 3-10-9 Rainbow.
Well, Jake has paired the threes and pulls ahead in this hand. Greg has a gut shot straight draw, needs a jack.
Well, I guarantee you Jacob's not betting because he hit the 3. He is just hoping that Raymer has none of this and he can take the pot down right now. $315,000 is the bet.
And Greg doesn't look like he's going anywhere.
Greg with 2 over cards to the board also has the gutter ball straight draw.
Well, doesn't look like he's getting calling chips ready. Them looks like raisin chips. And that's exactly what they are. Big bet coming from Greg Raymer.
It was $315,000 for Greg to call, and he now raises it to $1.2 million in chips, thinking there's probably only 1 or 2 hands that Jacob's going to call with here if he does have something. And Raymer is taking advantage of the other pro at this final table. And look at that, Greg Raymer stacking mountains of blue chips. And he is now our chip leader at this final table.
7-4 is in the muck for Jake, and you can see the frustration on his face right now. Bruce peels back 6-3. Bruce in the small blind. Looks like he is going to raise it up into the random hand of Greg Raymer. Makes it 130 to go.
And that random hand is about as random as it gets. King deuce. And Greg will call. Now, I know the players do get familiar with one another after a long time of playing, but still, when you look over and you see Fossilman put on the glasses, you know that's Greg Fossilman Raymer sitting over there.
And you know he's probably better than you. Bruce has a gut shot straight draw, needs a 5. Greg has paired the deuce, but he chooses not to bet it. Both players check here.
Let's go ahead and see the turn.
And now here comes the turn. It's another deuce.
And it gets better for Greg. He now has trip deuces. And even better news for Greg, it looks like Bruce is stacking some chips.
Bruce is firing a complete bluff at this pot. $175,000 is the bet over to Greg.
And it looks like Greg is going to very leisurely min raise here. Makes it $350,000 to go.
Did I mention I'm Greg Raymer?
Well, Bruce right now has 6 high and a gut shot straight draw, and yeah, the price got a little too expensive for that kind of a hand, and Greg Raymer is now going to stack almost $1 million in chips.
Some other things here of note on the HPT. If Greg Raymer wins tonight, he will also be the all-time leading money leader on the HPT. He started playing our events a couple of seasons ago, but Fred, obviously this year in Season 8, he has just absolutely been tearing the thing apart.
Blinds are moving up.
40 and 80,000 are the blinds with a 10K ante.
Greg wakes up with wired 4s, raises it up to 165,000. Action now on the young pro. Jake claims to have about $1 million in tournament winnings. That's what it says right here.
$1 million?
$1 million. That's how he phrases it. When you have $1 million, you can call it $1 million.
Is that like a Portuguese denomination, or is that $1 million American dollars?
I just hope I one day have enough money to give it a nickname. $1 million.
A grandy doesn't sound the same, does it?
No. A hundy? No, that doesn't do it. A dozeny?
Jacob re-raises with ace jack of diamonds, and Greg's going to call to see a flop.
Well, this could get ugly. An ace-high board with a 4 in the flop could be devastating.
The horses are in the gates. We've got ourselves a race. Jacob's big suited ace versus the small pocket pair. The flop is 3-7-9. And with that, the pocket pair keeps its nose ahead of the other competitors.
That's not going to slow Jake down, though. He's going to bet that ace-jack like it's wired aces. Makes it $400,000 to go. And look at this. Greg Raymer pounces, goes all in, forcing the young pro to call off his whole stack with ace-high. And you can see it in his face and his body language. Jake is just about had it with Greg Raymer here.
That is the second time he's made a big play towards Jake. More poker when we come back. Thanks for coming back to the HPT. Wow, Greg Raymer, just under $5 million in chips. And Fred, he has made Jake his personal whipping boy three-handed here on the final table.
Greg has been pouncing, but Jake is still in there. He's technically the short stack with just over $2 million. Still has 26 big blinds left in his stack. Bruce is the short stack right now with just under 1.5. Right now, it is all Greg Raymer action. In this hand, we'll start with Bruce. Blinds are at 40 and 80,000 with a 10,000 chip ante.
175,000 is the raise from Bruce with 6-8 of diamonds. Pocket sixes for Greg.
Here comes the pounce. It's going to happen.
Greg Raymer is playing his own game at this final table. He's controlling the action. He is making the big bets. He is just putting the wood to these other two players, saying, I'm going to run this town until I have no more run left in me.
Greg has re-raised it to 400,000. And Bruce with 8-6 suited probably shouldn't see a flop here, but it's hard not to when you're against Greg Raymer.
Well, Bruce only had 1.4 million chips to start this hand. And he has now got 400,000 of those chips in the pot, so he has just over $1 million behind. And here comes the flop. It's 9, 10, Jack with 2 hearts. The wrong red for Bruce, if you would.
Greg goes all in with pocket sixes. Bruce has an open-ended straight draw, but do you want to call off your tournament with an open-ended straight draw? The old rule in poker, never put all your chips in the middle on a draw, especially if you're calling. And Bruce apparently read the same book I did. He lays it down.
That was in the Memphis phone book?
Yes, it was.
Because you told me that's the only book you've ever read.
It's a good book. The bees are my favorite.
Ace deuce for Bruce.
And Bruce is going to go all in. Greg peels back queen 3. And even with his chip stack, he says, no, thank you. Action now over to Jake.
Third place tonight is just over 38,000. Second place, about a $20,000 difference. 59,000 for second place.
Well, Jake is holding 8 Jack, and it doesn't look like he wants to lay it down. Jake is getting an inventory of Bruce's chips. And you know, Chris, mathematically, it might be correct to call. Even though he probably knows he's behind. And he gives the whatever call.
I've played that way numerous times. Been there, buddy. And usually when you say whatever, it usually means that you're going to lose the hand. And Jacob right now is going to the flop behind, but he does have 2 live cards.
Well, it was only $385,000 for Jake to make the call and possibly eliminate a player. Jack 8 is not a hand he really wanted to call with, but he crunched the numbers in his head and said, yeah, I got to do it. The poker math is making me do it. And now he's going to need to get a little lucky here to get heads up with a world champ.
Well, it's still fun to see at this level when they're playing for $100,000 to hear a player say, whatever, and drop the chips into the middle. All right, here we go. Bruce going to the flop ahead to stay alive. And let's see the flop. It is deuce, deuce, 9. And that almost does it for Jacob. He is drawing almost dead here going to the turn.
Great flop for Bruce, poised to double up now.
Deuces are in this deck.
$1 million worth of chips in the middle here.
The turn is another deuce. Okay, well, that will shut the door on Jacob. And Bruce makes quad deuces at this final table. And Jacob just, let's see the river. Let's move on. Please. I wonder if Jacob's still saying whatever. I know one person who's not saying whatever. That is Bruce, who now has $1 million in chips. And Fred with the blinds at 40 and 80,000. It's still not a comfortable enough stack where he's going to have a lot of play.
It's costing him 150,000 in orbit. And here we go again. Greg Raymer raising it up, this time to 165,000 with King 7. Jake quickly gets out of the way, and now we're on Bruce.
Bruce has fresh chips right out of the oven. Bruce playing today in front of his girlfriend, who is in the audience, playing in his 4th HPT event.
Bruce's plans for his prize money is to put it in a college fund for his youngest son. What a waste.
Here we go. The flop is ace, ace, 4. Neither player has an ace, but Bruce does have the lead with his king 9. He checks over to Greg.
Greg is going to bet, makes it 125,000.
Now, if you're Bruce, do you play there's no way if he has an ace he bets, or do you play I bet you he's got an ace, that's why he's betting?
I think it's even a little bit deeper than that, Chris. I think Greg betting that, knowing Bruce doesn't have a whole lot of play left in his stack, figures, let's just put the guy on a decision right now.
And if he had an ace, he would have probably raised pre-flop as the short stack. Those are almost free chips Greg just picked up. Greg Raymer on quite a run. Can he do it tonight at our final table? Come back for more poker action. Welcome back to the HPT. It's time for our pro tip of the week. And Phil Hellmuth tonight, as he has all season long here on the HPT, is going to help you sharpen your game. Tonight, Phil discusses how to play against and with a calling station.
In my book, Play Poker Like the Pros, a New York Times bestseller, pretty lucky, I define a player that calls a lot, a calling station, as an elephant, someone who's stubborn. When I play against a player like that, I think, yum, yum, because that's a player who's going to pay me off. That's also a player that I do not try to bluff. He's impossible to bluff. So right away, get bluffing out of your range, okay? But you know he's going to call, so wait for your strong hands and make sure that you bet, bet, bet. Don't go for the check raise against a calling station. Just bet, bet, bet. Take advantage of the fact that they call and that they're a calling station. You know, when it comes to Jack 10-4 and you have the set of 4s, make sure that you bet it, and on the turn bet it, on the river bet it. Against a calling station, it's not hard to play. Just do not bluff them, and always bet, bet, bet when you have it.
Always good to listen to the world champ to brush up on your game. And Greg Raymer, also professional poker player. Something tells me he could use the tips, but probably is doing fine on his own.
Well, he's got just under $6 million in chips, 69% of the chips in play. Bruce is the short stack with just 10 big blinds left as we continue at 40 and 80,000 with a 10,000 chip ante.
Jacob's first act, he folds over to Bruce.
It's a middle ace for Bruce.
Coming out of the small blind. Short-handed. Let's get him in the middle. He moves all in. Over to Raymer. He will fold.
That's what the short stack has to do. Got to make a move when your chip stack can still hurt the other guy.
You know, the last thing you want to do is find yourself on auto call mode from everybody at the table.
Well, here's the short stack on the button with ace-3. Another fine hand to go all in with, short-handed.
I would use both hands. Grab one stack in each hand and ship them out to the middle.
Bruce is a business owner from Collierville, Tennessee. Has about 75,000 in career winnings, and as predicted, Chris, he is all in.
Raymer will fold, and now back to Jacob, and Jacob will fold. Hey, you got to get those chips one way or another, and every time you shove and don't get looked up, he's picking up 150,000 chips. Why not?
Every little bit helps.
All right, so Jacob on the button now. Makes it 160,000 with King 5 off.
And here is 10 queen suited for the short stack. Let's see if Bruce goes all in 3 times in a row.
68% of the time, it works every time.
He chooses just a flat call and see a flop here.
And Raymer looks down at Jack 8 of spades, paying almost more attention to the short stack than he is to the initial raiser.
Well, no question Greg is going to see a flop here.
Maybe wondering why Bruce just called that raise. But now all three players will see the flop together. Well, going to the flop, Jacob, the initial raiser with King 5, is going to be ahead. And here comes the flop. It's 9-3-4.
All three players missed this flop. Let's see which one chooses to be the aggressor. Jacob was the pre-flop raiser, so the door is open for him to continuation bet after it's been checked to him. And it looks like that is what he's going to do.
Jacob bets $215,000 back to Bruce.
And Bruce is going to fold. Let's see if Greg is going to lay it down.
Glasses or no glasses, it's still Jack 8 and is going towards the muck.
Jacob making it look so easy. Raise pre-flop, C-bet on the flop, scoop the pot.
Greg looks down at deuce 3 offsuit. He will fold. Back to Jacob as we're stepping lightly around the short stack here.
Jacob eyeballing Bruce's stack.
King 3 offsuit.
And he is going to move all in, put the pressure on the short stack to make the decision.
Well, Bruce, you like putting all of your chips in the middle. Do you like calling your chips into the middle?
6-4 offsuit, probably not. And there they go into the muck.
And we will continue with three-handed poker on our way to an HPT championship when we return. Welcome back to the conclusion of the HPT Championship Open, season number 8 here at Belterra Casino Resort. It's Fred Bevel and Chris Hansen. Here's the updated chip count. Not a lot has changed since we last checked in on the amount of chips.
Greg still holds control of this match with 65% of the chips in play. Bruce still the short stack with just 10 big blinds left in the stack. He's going to be looking to get lucky quick. Or it'll be Jacob and Greg Raymer heads up. And, of course, Greg going for his 4th win this season. Unprecedented.
And the world champ looks down at 5 deuce. That goes towards the muck. Third place tonight, by the way, paying $38,000. Second place, $59,000. Our winner tonight walks with $106,000 in cash.
Jacob puts the screws to the short stack here with just 9 high. And Bruce wakes up with King Jack suited, makes the snap call. And he's going to go to the flop ahead. But Jacob has 2 live cards and the spades.
Well, Bruce is ahead, but he is at risk. This pot with 1.6 million chips in it. I get the feeling that Jacob would have rather had Greg Raymer do the dirty work of eliminating Bruce, but right now, Bruce is trying to stay alive, and Fred, that's a great flop. King 10 queen. Bruce pulls further ahead.
Great flop for Bruce here. He hits top pair. He's also open-ended. Jacob has a gut shot straight draw. He'll be hoping to find a jack to suck out here. Bruce poised to double up, and Chris, there's 1.6 million in this pot. That would get him right back in the game.
And the turn is a 7 of spades. Bruce is in full sweat mode going to the river.
Jacob is hoping for an 8, a jack, or a spade. Otherwise, Bruce will double up.
And here comes the river. Oh, it is a jack! Oh, man!
Why does it always have to come on the river?
Jacob makes his straight, and Bruce is going to make his way away from this final table thanks to the suck out on the river.
$38,000 is what he's going home with. Let's hear what he thinks about today's play.
Well, it was pretty easy for me, being where I was in the stack when he raised all in King Jack. I figured it was good. I figured he'd raise with just about anything right there, and obviously the flop was pretty good. Although we saw that there was a jack possibility for him, and then the turn was really bad for me. Gave him a lot of outs, and he caught one of them on the river. That's where it goes.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed from Bruce that we didn't hear any expletives in the interview. It would have been a little bit more salty, but we are ready for Heads Up Poker. It is Greg Raymer moving over to seat 5. Jacob is now in seat 2 as Greg Raymer is trying to win his 4th tournament this season on the HPT.
An unprecedented achievement. The poker world is watching. And Greg is going to raise it up here, makes it $160,000 to go with wired ducks.
Now, there might be some people who are saying, why is Greg Raymer playing so many HPT events? And Greg is very clear on this. He says, with the skill that I have and the amount of money it costs to get into these events, these are the best events that I personally can play. And he says everyone should be playing these HPT events for the same reason.
Best value in poker. Here comes the flop.
It's 5-4 ace.
Jacob outflops the champ here. He pairs the 5. Greg picks up a gut shot straight draw to go with his pair of ducks. Jacob checks over to Greg, and Greg is going to fire. He makes it 160,000. Jacob here with middle pair is going to call.
So here comes the turn. The turn is a 6 of spades. Jacob's still ahead.
And Jacob checks over to Greg again. Let's see if Greg slows down here. He does. He checks behind, takes the free river card.
Let's go ahead and see the river.
And probably whoever bets on the river is going to win this hand. The river is a king of spades.
Well, Jacob has the best hand unless Greg can somehow push him off. Action on Jake right now. He is going to check. And Greg not going to put any more money into the pot. Jake's going to show his pair of 5s. And he's going to scoop the first hand here, heads up.
Jacob's got to be wondering here in this first heads-up hand, what was Greg raising with? If his pair of 5s, middle pair, is good enough to win. Obviously, there was an ace on the flop, and he still took the pot down. I'm guessing Jake's a little surprised that he won that hand.
Well, Jake now peels back the affectionately known Chris Hansen, Jack 9.
I love it so much.
And he does what you do with it, my friend. He raises it to 160,000.
Over to Greg.
Make it street legal.
And Greg is just going to flat call here with a suited ace in his hand.
All right, Billy, let's go and see the flop, sir.
And the flop is 3 deuce queen with a couple of spades on board.
Pretty good flop for Greg. He picks up the nut flush draw. Jacob here with just jack high. Looks like he is going to bet.
Jacob, I've read this book before. Your bet is going to do nothing. Been in this position more times than I'd care to admit. 175K is the bet from Jacob.
And Greg is going nowhere with this kind of a draw. Just makes the call.
And no raise from Greg as well. He doesn't want to scare Jacob away if Jacob has part of that flop. The turn is a 4 of diamonds.
Well, Greg still is in the lead here with ace high and picks up even more outs to make a hand. He's got a gut shot straight draw and a nut flush draw.
Raymer checks. Over to Jacob. The 29-year-old poker pro from Cincinnati. Bets $355,000.
And if Greg didn't have the kind of draw he has right now, that would probably be enough to get him to fold. And he is going to make the call, just throwing one chip out into the middle. Tells the dealer and the tournament director he's going to call. Puts the rest of the chips that are due out in the middle.
This pot now worth over $1 million in chips at $1.4 million. And let's see the river. The river is another deuce, the deuce of clubs. Actions on Greg.
Greg checks. He does have the best hand. If Jacob can somehow fire a third bullet here on the river, it might work, but he does not. And Greg's going to turn over ace high and see that he is good.
Nothing like winning a massive pot with ace high. More Heads Up Poker when we come back on the HPT. Welcome back to the HPT Season 8 Championship Open, where Greg Raymer, the world champ, is going for his 4th HPT title. Fred, and right now, heads up, things are looking good for the champ.
They are looking great. He's got just under 6 million chips in play. Jake with just under 2.5 million. But I tell you what, an all-in and double up from Jake evens this match out. Still a lot of poker to be played. Jake, sitting with 30 big blinds in his stack, is not pressured by the blinds right now, as they remain at 40 and 80,000 with a 10,000 chip ante.
And Greg will raise it up. He raises it to 160,000 with 8-10 of hearts. Back to Jacob. Jacob says winning this title is more important to him than the money. Liar. $106,000 is important to almost everybody.
The young pro looking to make a splash in the poker scene by not only taking down his first HPT title, but doing it by defeating Greg Raymer, world champion and 3-time HPT champion.
Well, Jacob called, so here's our flop. It's 9-4-9 with 2 clubs.
Great flop for Jake. He flops trip 9s.
He checks, and looks like Raymer will not be checking.
Greg was the pre-flop raisers. Jake probably expected this. That's why he checked. And here comes a nice little flat call, Chris, to keep the champ on the line.
I'm expecting a raise out of Jacob. He's hoping to really hit a big one here. He's hoping that Greg actually has a legitimate hand. Maybe he's got jacks. Maybe he's got something like pocket 7, some kind of pocket pair that maybe he's going to fall in love with.
Well, you just flopped trips. Heads up. I would think he'd want to start setting a trap, but he agrees with you. He is going to raise. He makes it $385,000. And that's going to be enough to get the champ off the hook here. And he agreed with you. I think maybe he played a little too fast, but 2 clubs on the flop there. There could have been a monster under the bed.
And I think Greg has also shown, I'll bet the flop, but if I don't have anything, I'm checking the turn. So there might not have been any more value. Like I said, I think Jacob was trying to hook himself into a real big hand there.
This time the champ peels back ace, queen offsuit.
The blinds have gone up to 60 and 120,000 with a 10K ante.
And we start with Greg.
And our chip leader is assembling chips for a raise again.
Greg's going to raise it.
240,000 is the raise out of Raymer. Ace 6 of diamonds for Jacob.
Well, Jacob's definitely going to see a flop here with a suited ace heads up.
240.
240. The raises to 240 by Greg. 240.
All in.
All in.
Oh, my goodness. He is putting the champ on a decision here by going all in. And Greg is going to make the call.
And here we go, Fred. Are we standing on the edge of history? Greg Raymer looking to become our first 4-time champion. He's looking to become the all-time career money winner as well on the HPT. And right now he is in great shape to do both of those and collect a $106,000 payday.
Jacob hoping for diamonds or a 6 on this flop.
And the flop is 7-3 queen. That is going to all but do it for Jacob.
A perfect flop for Greg Raymer. Jacob is going to need perfect on the turn and the river, and can't have a spade, or it's going to give Greg the flush.
Over half those hands heads up.
And the turn is a 5 of hearts. We're not out of here yet, Fred Bevel.
That's a sweat card. Jake is now hoping to find a 4 on the river, a non-spade 4 on the river to suck out and even this match up.
The river is another 7, and that is going to do it. Greg Raymer, the first ever 4-time champ on the HPT, and he is the winner of the HPT Season 8 Championship Open.
And the champ is a little emotional. Why not? He's just made history. Let's see what Jake has to say about playing against the champ and falling just a little short of his own championship.
I feel pretty good about it overall. Anytime you get second in a tournament, you can't complain. When you enter a tournament, you take second all day. Just, you still didn't win, so it's still disappointing.
Well, the young pro has quite a story, Fred, and $58,000 in cash for his second place finish. Not bad, but now the attention goes back to the fossil man, Greg Raymer. Let's hear about his historic run this year on the HPT.
I don't really get emotional playing poker, but when I saw that flop on the final hand, and it was almost a lock, I was pretty overwhelmed. 4 titles, Player of the Year, all-time money leader, all that stuff, just, not something I could have even hoped for, when 2012 started. So it's very overwhelming, thrilling, happy, but it's just kind of like, wow, amazing, and again, I'm not trying to put myself down, but I ran really good in every one of these events, and you have to run good. No matter how well you play, you have to run good to win a tournament. But I could see my opponents thinking it was unfair how well I ran, and especially in some spots.
Well, what a great way to wrap up Season 8 on the HPT. Hats off. We're not wearing hats, but hats off to Greg Raymer. 4 titles in 1 year. Season 9 will be very interesting as Greg comes back as our Player of the Year. Fred, you better watch out. Greg Raymer is playing great poker right now. You think you've got what it takes to sit at our final table and win the unreal cash? Well, then log on to hptpoker.com to find out about our upcoming events. Season 9 on the HPT, changing gears. I'm going to be stepping aside on the HPT, but Fred is getting a much better looking co-host next season as we are joined by poker pro Maria Ho right here at the desk for Season 9 on the HPT. For James Larson and Fred Bevel, I'm Chris Hansen. We'll see you next time right here on the HPT.